Zach, you know you look a lot like Jonah Hill right now.
Listen here, William Hung. I don't need any of your lip right now.
Guardians of Liberty are now brought to you by William Hung and Jonah Hill. And it is a much better show for it.
Roads to Liberty presents the Guardians of Liberty with your hosts, Nathan Barada and Zach Taylor.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Guardians of Liberty. Sorry, William Hung and Jonah Hill aren't your hosts. If you want to hear that show, you're in for a disappointment because I don't think it'll ever happen. But you're stuck with us. Myself, Nathan Parada, and quarterback Zach Taylor. We're just here to have another fun and exciting time. How was your week, Zach? You have a good time?
It was okay. It was one of those weeks where I tried really hard and didn't succeed, but didn't fail either. So,
see, I find that the colder it gets, the lazier I am. And therefore, the less I accomplish.
Well, I'm already really lazy, so.
Well, it's funny because I freaking work outside as part of my job.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, when we do this broadcast, it goes to a private Facebook group that I can pull the video off and edit it, and the only other people who can see it are the other people who are on our podcast team. So this just happened. Mike is apparently watching us and not quite sure what to think of things.
He's spying on us.
Yeah.
Watching our raw data. How dare he?
I just brought it up. Can you see what I just did?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
He's commenting, "Where's the beard?" And I guess we should make this clip for everybody who's listening and can't see the video. Zach has had a big old beard for as long as I've known him, and it's gone.
I buzzed it 2 hours ago. The longest hairs were about 8 or 9 inches.
So I'm telling you, some dudes when they shave their beard, they just completely look different. Mm-hmm. I still recognize you as you, but there's some dudes that I knew in the military who grew their beards out once they were out. I did not recognize them at all anymore. Like, I knew this one guy, his name is Sherman, cool guy. He lives in Chicago now, but he had this weird baby face when he was clean shaven, and now he's just grown it out. He looks like a metal band guitarist. It's the weirdest thing when people grow a shave. Like, I can't grow a beard. It's just patchy. It looks absolutely horrible. I mean, but
so
Puerto Ricans don't grow beards, apparently.
I did an interview for the LPNE this week. So go check that out. I'm actually posting a bunch of interviews with people who are running for chair and vice chair. I'm getting everybody. I even got a soft commitment from Nicholas Sarwark. So one of the people, and you can go find this video for yourself, one of the people showed up with a full suit and tie, 100% ready to go. And I'm sitting there in a polo with a kind of a scraggly looking beard. And it's like, I love my beard. And my fiance loves my beard. But if I'm going to keep doing video work, and if I want this to become a professional thing that I do, I got to make that sacrifice.
You gotta get rid of the beard. All you need now is to put on a nice fancy dress suit to go with the nice clean shave.
I don't know. Like, eventually I'll have to go that far because I'm, helping people with campaigns and all that.
Well, like right now you just need the shirt, tie, and the tie. You don't need the pants or anything. You just see from the waist up. You just see the shoulders, and so you don't even need like the pants and stuff. You just need that.
I do have a suit jacket.
When I was at yeah, there you go. Like, I'm sure it was the same with you because when we did photos at Air Force Basic Training, all we got was the top. We didn't have anything else. We were in our freaking ABUs and a dress uniform on top. It was the weirdest thing. So yeah, you can just go that route.
Oh, we didn't take anything in our dress uniform. The army is not big. The army at the time was not big on the dress uniform. Partially because they had that nasty green thing and everyone hated it.
Yeah, the army has the worst dress uniforms. Just the worst.
The new one is very nice. They went back to the dress blues. They look good. But then they screwed up the work uniform. Like the new camo looks gross.
Yeah, those are still the worst. But unless you're counting those stupid sailor suits that the Navy wears. Unless you're counting them. Because, like, the white officer dress uniforms, those look awesome. But the stupid sailor suits and, like, the brown casual work ones that they wear, they just look horrible. So I guess the Navy would have the worst unless you're talking those white. I think only the officers wear those. Then the Army, then the Air Force, and the Marines have the best. Because, you know, the Marines are just they're the best killing machines, and they look good in their dress uniforms. Priorities, right? They got 10 guys to a dorm room, but they got nice dress uniforms.
I don't know, man. Like, I think blue and black looks better than black and red.
What, you mean like what the Army's got?
I think the Army's black and blues look better than the Marines, where it's, you know, that black and then there's red stripes.
Nah, I much prefer what the Marines have got going. But I also like the Air Force blues more than these Army uniforms.
Well, I mean, you're entitled to be wrong. It's fine.
I am not wrong about this. I am absolutely correct. But anyway, we didn't come here to talk about military uniforms, or did we? We want to make this whole episode about military uniforms? Let's not go that route. All right, we wanted to talk a little bit about culture war. And Zach, I'm going to let you take the lead on this for once, since I usually tend to talk over you, which is totally unfair to you. So I'm going to let you take the lead. So take it away, Zach, on the culture war.
So the reason we're jumping into this is something that I kind of excel at. And so I'm pulling an article from the Federalist, which is I think a fair right-wing publication. They, at least I like Ben Dominance. We'll say that. And this is an article by Robert, and I'm not even going to try his last name because I don't care and I can't pronounce it. It's called 5 Ways to Know If We've Won the Culture War. Now, there's something that I need you guys to understand. Libertarians are not fighting the culture war. We have completely screwed the pooch on that. Anyone who is an individualist, and it's probably the nature of being an individualist, getting them to work together to fight a culture war is difficult because we don't really work together. I mean, in small groups, sure, that's human interaction, but a big mass movement. I know Sargon of Akkad is trying to do something like this. And to a certain extent, he is an individualist, but he's, kind of a statist at the same time. But I do like that you are starting to see individualists and people who love freedom starting to step up and say, look, I'm going to subjugate my ego and my will a little bit and realize that we are losing badly because we're not even fighting. Right now, the fight seems to be between a group of right-wing collectivists who, Ben's asking who's the new guy.
It's Jonah Hill.
So we have a group of right-wing collectivists who want big government so they can fight their wars, and some of them want some white ethno-state and mega 4D chess, underwater, whatever.
Basket weaving.
Yeah. So, and then on the other side, you have I mean, SJWs. I don't like to use
radical elements on the left.
The thing is, they're not radical. That is the left now. That is the Democratic Party platform.
Yeah. I mean, they're radicals to us. So to the sane individuals left in this country, they're radicals. But you're right. That is the mainstream left these days.
They've pushed the moderates. They've pushed Dave Rubin out of their party. They're pushing Sam Harris out of their party. These are people who should be the moderate left, and they're pushing them into, the Libertarian Party, if it could get its dang act together. And that's what we're here for. That is what we're here for, is to get this party. It like you don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to be involved in everything, but we need to get some kind of order and maintain some kind of system so we can start seeing gains in the liberty movement. And it doesn't all have to be political. We need entrepreneurs. We need new technologies. Cryptocurrency could save us. The blockchain could save us. We need to keep government out of it as long as possible so that it has a chance.
See, I think a lot of the reason you see the libertarians kind of because I don't think we're sitting on the sidelines. I think libertarians, by and large, get sidelined by other radical movements. And I think one of the reasons for that is because these other movements are relying upon the institutions of government to achieve the end goals that they want. SJWs do not want to bring about a cultural movement. They want to bring about a governmental movement. They want to change the institutions of government in order to bring about their preferred outcomes. And the alt-right's the same way. The alt-right's not talking about dismantling institutions of government. They're talking about using those institutions in a manner that they like. Libertarians, on the other hand, are the only group of people out there consistently calling for governmental institutions to be abolished or at least heavily scaled back. And today, everything's about politics, right? I mean, sports is about politics. TV, movies is about politics. You can't get away from it. It's everywhere. The entire country's been politicized. So that being the case, you got a group of people that are just radical abolitionists when it comes to government. We don't want to use government to force the radical left or the alt-right to fit into whatever mold we want to put them in. Now let them go be radical idiots on their own time, whatever. We just don't want them controlling what other people do via force. Now, so libertarians get sidelined because we're the only ones that aren't trying to use these institutions of violence against either group. Whereas these SJWs and these alt-right individuals, that's their goal. Their goal is to use the gun, to use the whip against their political opposition, which naturally is going to provoke a much harsher lashback. Like with the alt-rights, I see it more as a counter movement than anything else to the radical left. Because the left has gotten so out of hand, and I was seeing these guys getting out of hand way before I saw the alt-right become anything to speak of. They're now marching down the streets, openly carrying their communist flags. They're openly calling themselves communists. They're wanting like a class warfare. All this stuff. They've integrated communism into their radical feminist SJW ideology, and the alt-right is mainly a lashback against that. If you look at the historical context of this, I mean, this is how one of the reasons Nazi Germany came to power. It's because the Nazis were the main opposition to communists, and it was the same thing. Nazis wanting to use the state to oppress communists versus communists who want to use the state to oppress Nazis. And you have the classical liberals of the time just got pushed to the sidelines because they're the only ones that weren't willing to get down the trenches and commit violence against these people. So it's not that libertarians, I think, are sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. I think we get drowned out by the radical craziness that are these two opposing ideologies.
So I think that there is a certain amount of we get drowned out because we do not join our voices together to make them louder. We all have our little pet peeve issues that we go after. And I do think it's important that we start really talking about principles. I think, there's issues that we can win on. There's a lot of people in Nebraska, I mean, we were making fun of this on our LPNE page, that think that hemp is marijuana. We can roll back government very easily just through education. But I want to jump into this article here real quick. So it's the 5 ways to know we've won the culture war. Number 1, the renaissance of great books education. So the problem with this point, and understand they're arguing from kind of the right-wing side of this. The problem with this point is who defines the great books? Because they're talking about they're talking about cultivating ideas in younger people so that young people can learn to debate and reason through things. But at the same time, I'm not sure if it's really good for a high school student to be reading, Rules for Radicals, while I think a college student should know what that book is. At what point, what is society's responsibility in this, like, in education? I'm not talking about government, because we oppose government education. But society, apart from government, like what is important for society to teach the individual? Is it important for society to teach what's the Communist Manifesto? Should someone should an impressionable mind read that book? We would say no, but others would say yes, and I don't know. It's kind of a hairy issue. Like, when are you old enough to, not old enough, when are you wise enough to be able to read something and understand that it is, like, it's wrong and it's a dangerous idea for you and others? How do we determine that? Or should we determine that as a society? Should that be purely the individual? And these are questions that we have to answer. I'm not trying to say that I have the answers to these questions. But I feel that a lot of times libertarians don't even want to answer these kind of big picture questions. They're more worried about, the legitimacy of, different government organizations. And I think that that's good to a certain extent, but we should not neglect big societal wide ideas to focus on our pet peeves. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making sense. I think one of the answers to that is really that we don't rely upon historical examples the way we should. Because I can forgive somebody in 1917 Russia for believing communism was a good idea. That's a forgivable offense because that person never had an historical example of communism in action. It's a lot harder for me to forgive a college student in 2017 for believing in communism because they've had those historical examples. They've had the Soviet Union, they had communist China, Vietnam, North Korea, Cuba, all these examples of communist nations that rose and fell, and none of which were any sort of success. So the problem isn't necessarily when is somebody wise enough per se to read the Communist Manifesto. The problem is that people are never given the historical context that they need. Because if you're given that historical context and then read the Communist Manifesto, manifesto, you might think, oh, this sounds good, but I can look back at history and see how this worked out in actuality. It didn't end very well for hundreds of millions of people, for billions of people, really, because even the survivors of communism had to live through decades of grinding poverty. So that's really what we're missing. We're really missing an emphasis on history. Because history is important. History is the testing ground of ideologies. We can look back and see which ideologies have worked, and we can see which ones have failed and reject them, because if they haven't been able to be successful in the past, they're probably not going to be successful in the future again. But no, I see your point, but the what I got out of this point really was that not necessarily which books people should read, but that people should read. Like the writer made the point later on when he asked the rhetorical question: if you were to ask Donald Trump what his 5 major intellectual influences were, what would he say? Would he be talking about Aristotle? Would he be talking about, I don't know, Milton Friedman? Would he be talking about John Locke or Thomas Paine? Are these the people he's going to be talking about? I doubt it. And you ask most people today who their major ideological influences are. Are they going to talk about the classics? Are they going to, hey, what are the top 5 books that have influenced the way you think? But they're probably not going to be able to name 5 books that they've read, period, much less 5 books that most influence their thinking. So that's where I think he's getting at, that people do not read as much as they should. They don't absorb the classics, the great books, as he calls them.
So, caveat: what's your 5 most influential books?
5 most influential books. Can I include pamphlets as well, or do they have to be like
5 most influential literature?
All right. The Second Treatise of Government by John Locke. That would be one. Common Sense by Thomas Paine would be another one. Okay, I'm not going to throw the Declaration of Independence in there, even though that was a huge influence on my thinking. That's not a book. It's like a couple pages long.
You can it's a great work.
I completely agree. But I'll put more. That was influenced a lot by Second Treatise of Government, which I already named. Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged was a huge influence on my thinking. Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman was the first economics book I've ever read, and that had a huge influence on my thinking as well. I got 4 right now. I'm going to say The Law by Bastiat.
Okay. I've got parts of the Bible, I would say. So number 2, and I need you to follow me down a path, because a lot of mine aren't going to be the same kinds of things that you would say. Mm-hmm. The Chronicles of Narnia.
Ooh, great books.
And my reasoning there is, for me, libertarianism is not the theoretical work that it is for other people. To me, the individual is libertarianism is the natural ideology of the individual. And books about heroes and people who strove and faced adversity and overcame, Jordan Peterson talks about, you got to go out and rescue the damsel and slay the dragon and all that kind of stuff. Those stories resonate with individuals. And I feel that shaped me into a person who always wanted to do the right thing, because I always wanted to be a hero. And sometimes I don't do the right thing, but I always try. For me, 3 would be Beric the Briton. It was a book called Beric the Briton that told the story of a Celt that was taken to Rome to fight in the Colosseum. And it was told from the perspective kind of a historical fiction perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me really interested in history. And I would say that I read a lot more history growing up than, theory stuff. And a lot of it was based around English history. And a lot of post-Enlightenment ideas came out of England. So that had a huge impact on me. Number 4, as an adult, I would say a book called The Way of Kings.
I love that book. By the way, have you started the new one?
No, I'm getting it next weekend.
It's good.
Okay. So I don't know if this is what he intended, but there is a line in the Stormlight Archive, which is the series that Way of Kings is the first book on, that like the motto of the heroes of the is life before death, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. And like that always sounded kind of hokey until it really started to settle in that the story isn't trying to teach you how he views what a good king is. It's trying to teach you what the author views a good man as. A man who values life, a man who values strength, and a man who understands that the journey, the way you get to where you're going is just as important as the destination. And when that really sunk into me is when I became a much better person. I just lost it. The Invisible Hand. What's the name of that book?
Oh, you're
Wealth of
talking about
Nations.
The Wealth of Nations. Yeah.
That really got me more interested in economics. So.
Yeah. See, The Wealth of Nations is one of those books that you kind of have to read it like the Bible, where you don't read it from cover to cover. You kind of pick sections that you're interested in and read those. Because if you read it from cover to cover, it's just, it's a lot.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever read it all the way through, and I think that's okay.
No, that's fine.
I got the gist.
Some books you don't necessarily need to read all the way through, and as awesome as The Wealth of Nations is, it's a really thick book, and it's written in old-timey English, and it's kind of hard to understand if you're just trying to read it on through.
So that when I was talking earlier about the Beric the Briton, that's in old-timey English. That's actually how I learned to read when I was like 8 or 9, was to read that style of English.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually do just fine. Like I've read Pilgrims Progress, boring book, by the way. It tells the same story twice. I don't know why. It just does.
I've never read it. But yeah, that's one of those things, though, because like libertarians as a whole, you can ask them what like the 5 most influential books they've read are, and they can almost to a T start naming them out like that. But is that the same with all these people in the alt-right and the radical left? I don't think it is. Now, these are people that get the majority of their opinions from freaking Bernie Sanders, Slate.com, and the Huffington Post. They're not reading John Locke, Plato, and Aristotle. They're not reading these. These are not the major influences on their lives. You see, it's kind of a funny thing because I remember going to college. I only went for like 2 years. I was taught just enough to be curious enough to go out and discover my own way of thinking. I think I told this story before that one of the questions that my philosophy teacher asked is, okay, what makes something evil? I said it has to have a victim, and he asked why. And I went, well, that was always my thinking. I never had to answer. I never had to think about a why. That's always been my instinctual answer. But that got me going down the rabbit hole where eventually I end up here in 2018 doing a podcast about libertarianism. See, I was never taught what to believe per se. You know, I was just given enough tools to go out and discover things on my own. The majority of the opinions I eventually came to, I came to on my own. They were just logical next steps from the principles that I laid down for myself at that time. Like principle number one, if something is wrong, it needs to have a victim. You know, no victim, no crime. It's a very simple principle, but the implications of that are far reaching. You know, to where you start out, you know, maybe marijuana should be legal. And at the time for me, that was like, oh my goodness, radical opinion. This is back in like 2008. Now I'm as comfortable saying weed should be illegal as I am saying that, you know, I like drinking coffee. It's just the natural thing for me. But yeah, a lot of those great books that the author's talking about, people, it's important to read them. It's important to familiarize yourself with some of the great works of literature. And naturally, as libertarians, we're more familiar with books like The Road to Serfdom than we are with books by Karl Marx. But, you know, a lot of us are familiar with those works and have rejected them because we know what they are, we know what they say, and we know enough history to understand that they're nonsense.
All right. So point 3, and this is one, like we have, I think, disagreements with all the points that he's made for the most part. Like there's things we agree with that he says and things we disagree with. This is one I absolutely agree with. The personal will no longer be the political. I'm going to read this kind of verbatim because I think what he says here is pretty good. If politics is the primary source of meaning in life, then everything else has to become about politics. Sports events have to be about fighting racism. Superhero movies have to be about smashing the patriarchy. Halloween has to be about cultural appropriation. Science fiction shows have to be partisan political allegories, and so on. We'll be winning the culture war when it's acceptable again for sports, entertainment, music, sex, and all the rest to be about sports, entertainment, music, and I don't know how sex fits into that. That's a little weird.
I don't know either, but I gotta say bravo to that point.
It should be acceptable for the majority of life to be important and interesting in its own right and on its own terms, and for politics to take a back seat. Here's the thing. We advocate for a government that is so small that it doesn't factor into your daily life. And that's not what we have. And that's not what the alt-right is advocating for. It's not what Republican politicians are advocating for. It's not what Democrats are advocating for. We want a government that doesn't matter, so that the things that matter to you don't have to be political. I shouldn't have to worry about so much government nonsense as I'm trying to buy a house so that I have a roof over my head for my family. It's not just national politics. We're focused on every level of getting the government away from the individual so the individual can just be and do what makes them happy. Thoughts, Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely. This goes through all levels of government, from the city of Bellevue telling you that you can't build a shed on your own property to the federal government taxing your income. I mean, this is important on all levels here. But we made this point a few months back, and it's just as true now as it was then, that the incredible size of government and how intrusive it is on your day-to-day life means that it is almost impossible to disconnect yourself from politics. I mean, the point this guy makes is absolutely true. Politics is in everything. It's in the freaking NFL for some reason. It should never be anywhere near sports, but it is. You know, you go to the movies and half the time they're preaching at you. If God forbid you turn on one of these big award shows, because they're just going to preach at you again and again and again. You know, that these awards are just supposed to be about celebrating achievement in art. great acting, great filmmaking, great music, great plays. They're not supposed to be the personal soapboxes of political hacks who live in a bubble and don't know anything about the world outside of their own little sphere. But that's what it's become. Everything is political. And he's right. We know we're winning the culture war when it's okay to enjoy things that have no political context whatsoever. Can't we just let people enjoy stuff? When did that become a bad thing? When did everything have to be so political? And when everything is as political as it is, and it's in the context of forcing your views on other people, it's going to lead to perpetual violence between the two sides. That's how it ends. That's how you end up with radical leftist communists versus alt-right Nazis. That's how you end up with this situation, because one feeds the other. And the bigger one gets, the bigger the other gets to compensate.
Here's one that it might surprise you, but I really disagree with this one. The business of America will be business. No. The business of America as a nation should be to protect the individual rights, liberties, and lives of its citizens. That's it. That is the business of America. Stay away from me. Make sure no one's trying to kill me or hurt me. That's the extent.
I don't see it, America as having a business, as he puts it. Like, what's the business of America? Whatever Americans want it to be. We're individualists here, remember? We believe that each individual should be allowed to pursue whatever goal he wants, so long as he doesn't violate the life, liberty, or property of anybody else in the process. So would it be nice if the business of America is business? Yeah, sure. That'd be great. But if the business of America is something else, okay. But we're a country of 350 million individuals. So theoretically, we should have the business of America should be 350 million different things, because each individual has their own goals, has their own thing that they want out of life, and their business is to achieve that goal and is to gain whatever it is they've put in front of themselves. So the business of America is 350 million different things. So it's not a point that I want to like jump down the guy's throat on, because I get what he's saying. And some of the points he makes are absolutely right. Because some of the points he's making is saying that, hey, maybe we shouldn't feel ashamed about wealth, about our prosperity, about doing what we have to do to live more prosperous and comfortable lives. Like, I agree with that 100%. No one should feel ashamed for the accomplishments they gain. You shouldn't have to try to whitewash them. If you're successful, bravo, good for you. If you gain $1 billion because you're a successful businessman and you do it ethically, bravo, good for you. You shouldn't have to feel ashamed for that. That's one of the points he's trying to make. But yeah, I agree essentially that there is no one business of America. There's no like one thing that we should be working towards. We're 350 million people. We have 350 million different businesses as it goes.
And so the final point that he makes isn't really a point. It's the culture war will never be over. And he's right. There's always going to be someone that wants to change the culture and always someone that wants to preserve it. Okay, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah, but I think what libertarians have to bring to this discussion is there's no reason why America has to have one culture.
Definitely.
There is absolutely no reason for that. And the only reason that we seem to think that has to be the case is because this institution called government exists, and it's huge, and it has the power to enforce your cultural values on everybody else.
I think the argument that really drives me nuts from the closed border types is Like, if we let in all these other people, they're going to bring the laws from the countries that they left. I don't buy that. So the problem is it's the welfare state. We've made this point a few times. We're going to keep making it. If you have a welfare state, yes, you will get people coming from countries to get freebies. Owen Benjamin kind of makes this point where he will talk about, some of the people that we got from Muslim countries in the 70s are not the same kinds of people that we're getting today. And there's validity on a statistical level to that argument. Because the people who came in the 70s were escaping hardcore Islamic regimes. And so they were the more freedom-oriented, people in their culture. And you can historically look at other cultures and see this is true. If you look at Scotland now, it's a socialist, it's a country that has a lot of socialist leanings. And I would not want to live there, as much as it's there's the part of me that will always consider Scotland home.
Because all the good Scots came here.
Yeah, all the good Scots fought in the Jacobite Wars and either died or got deported. And then the ones that got deported came to America and were the backbone of the military that kicked the English out. We talk about the term redneck down in the South in the mountain areas. Those people were rednecks because that's what the Scots who were kicked out of Scotland, they wore red scarves. That's where redneck comes from. Those people came to America and moved into the Appalachian Mountains because it reminded them of home, and stayed and fought and clawed. And, if you want to, the slavery thing was not the Scots. The Scots who were down there were way too poor for that nonsense, for the most part. Obviously, bad apples, whatever. But those people were, to me, the best parts of Scottish culture. What is left in Scotland is not. You can apply that argument to almost every people group that has come to America. The ones who want freedom and want liberty left wherever they were at and came here. Our job, if we have a job as a culture, is to take those values and be the light on the hill, that city on a hill reference that a lot of Christians make too.
I think Reagan was the one that popularized it.
Maybe that's a very old Christian saying, but be that beacon that people can see what freedom looks like, see how successful we are, and want that for themselves. And I think that we should be encouraging people to make their country more like ours, not come to our country. And that's not saying that I don't want immigration, or that I don't want people from other cultures. I love interacting with other cultures. The best part of my deployment to UAE was learning about Indian culture from the people who were essentially slaves, if we're being honest. UAE has some really nasty practices with bringing in Indians and then basically making it impossible for them to leave.
Yeah.
And,
those Gulf states.
Worse.
Yeah, those Gulf states can be pretty messed up.
Yeah. Beacons of Western thought in the Arab world, but only for themselves. I think that it's better for the world if we go back to, through trade, through working with other people instead of bombing them, to push our ideas of individualism and freedom. We should be doing that instead of bringing people in necessarily. And again, that's not saying that people shouldn't be able to come, but I don't think that should be a focus for us. And it seems like our current government, a lot of times, is focused on bringing in people from other countries, when instead we should be exporting our ideas.
But how can we export our ideas, though, if our government has capitulated on them? Because you're right, we should be exporting liberalism, which is what built Western civilization. We should be exporting capitalism and individualism to the entire world. This should be America's #1 export. Ideas, capitalism, freedom, liberty, the principles of classical liberalism that made Western civilization great. You know, it wasn't the fact that white people lived in the West that made Western civilization great, because white people had created some really horrible dystopian civilizations before the classical liberal era. You know, it was the ideals of people like John Locke and the thinking of people like Adam Smith, the classical liberals and the free trade capitalists that made Western civilization the beacon of hope for the entire world. And we've ruined it. We don't have that in America anymore. So how can we export it to the rest of the world? Now when we interact with the rest of the world, it's at the point of a gun. We use our economic strength and our military strength to bully people instead of spreading the ideals that made America the greatest country in the world in the first place.
And then we wonder why they're all so hostile to us and why we're dealing with, and look, in some cases, we're getting the dregs of society. I mean, for every good person who's coming here to make a better life, there's someone coming here running drugs. And look, you know I'm for legalization, but those aren't good people, the ones that are running drugs, because they're also running guns, they're hurting people, they're stealing from people, and they're killing people.
I mean, I think, because a lot of people like to make the point that immigrants built America, and to a certain extent that is true. Yeah. Immigrants did a whole lot to make this country great, but they did that in an era when they had to make their own way. When you got out that boat, you went and got a job, and you went to work in a factory, and you went to work producing and creating value for the world. And those are the kind of immigrants that we want. Those are the kind of immigrants that I say, let them in. Oh, they're going to take our jobs. No. They're going to produce. They're going to create. They're going to make a wealthier world, which is exactly what we want. But it's all about the incentive structures. If we have a country that incentivizes entrepreneurship and rewards it and has the best environment possible for new businesses, then that's the kind of people we're going to get in this country. If we instead have a country that incentivizes people to come in order to live off America's generous welfare programs and government works and stuff like that, then those are the kind of immigrants you're going to get in. And you know what? I say let them both in, but it's the entrepreneurs that are going to be incentivized to come in more than the people who just want to live off American welfare systems. Now, if we have an environment of free market capitalism where entrepreneurship is rewarded, those people are going to come in, and they're the ones that are going to be successful. And then, only then, at that point, can America export our ideas to the rest of the world, to where people in Mexico can look at the huge success that capitalism is and say, you know what, that's a good idea. We should do that. You know, maybe we don't. Maybe we don't need this bloated government, and they can contrast us with someone like Venezuela and say, you know, we don't want that. We want freedom. We want liberty. We should adopt the cultural values of the West and say that this is a priority, and throw away whatever it was holding them back before. You know, because it's culture matters a great deal. I mean, it's one of those things that libertarians like to ignore a lot when they focus on politics and ignore culture. When you have a culture that says theft is wrong, murder is wrong, these are things that violate human rights, and we should do everything in our power to prevent that, that is the kind of cultural value that you want. Not every country has that. You know, we libertarians are consistent because we apply that non-aggression principle to the state as well as to the individual, whereas most people only apply it to the individual. But a lot of places don't even apply those kind of principles to individual action. And that's something superior about Western cultures as opposed to some others. That we place a high value, even today, we still place a high value on individual freedom. As much as we may handicap that with government action, it's still instinctually that we have in the West.
All right, so we're going to switch gears here a little bit and talk more policy things. This article is about 2 weeks oldish, and it's coming from 71 Republic, which is kind of a libertarian-leaning site that kind of deals with technology and things. The article is written by Ryan Lau, Lau. That's kind of a weird name, but shout out. It's a good article. What I really want to focus on, the article is entitled "The Free Market of Cryptocurrency is Under Attack." The nuts and bolts here. The tax bill that the Republicans passed, in its reclassification of the 1031 exchange law, has done more damage to economic freedom than any bill since the Affordable Care Act. He goes on to explain. What is 1031 and why is it important? Essentially, this measure, an important part of our tax code, allows for investors to defer capital gains taxes in the event that an investor is selling a property with the direct goal of purchasing a new one. This has been widely used by house flippers, and cryptocurrency traders alike. However, the tax bill removed cryptocurrency from its list of acceptable 1031 references. So I'm going to break this down. In the past, if you used cryptocurrency to buy a cryptocurrency, you were not taxed on that. Even if you had made a lot of money, like you buy one currency, it makes a lot of money. You sell into another currency, and it makes a lot of money. You're not taxed on that. Now you will be past a certain point. This affects people. Like, it's not going to affect me with the $200 I have floating around in crypto, but I have an investment in Nexus. Let's say that 2 months from now, Nexus goes off the chain and ends up price-wise where Ethereum is right now. What I have in Nexus just made me thousands of dollars. That tax is going to hit me. And I ain't brave enough to try to pretend that I didn't make that money. I'm not that guy. I don't have that kind of courage. This is the government slowly getting their hands around the crypto market. And we need to keep our eyes on this. And we need to push back. We need to be lobbying our senators and Congress people to say, hey, this is not okay, and this needs to be reclassified. It is none of your business if I am using a cryptocurrency to buy another cryptocurrency. Those are assets. They are not money. Although, I don't know, it's kind of tough to make that argument because we want it to be money. But, I don't know, we're playing kind of a weird game with the state right now, if we're being honest. What do you think? Well,
we simply want to avoid taxation on as much stuff as humanly possible. So
yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing here is we're look, taxation is theft. As you know, I don't think you're an anarchist.
No, not personally. I'm very close to one though.
Yeah, as minarchists, we'll say, we understand that a certain amount of tax is going to be necessary to fund the 2 or 3 things we think government should be doing. And I ain't even going to say roads, just like military. And a very small, defensively oriented one at that. And that's about it. That's a little bit of tax is going to be necessary for that. What they're doing right now, though, we have to fight back. And we need to fight dirty because they're going to fight dirty, too. They just reauthorized spying on Americans again. They love to reauthorize that. What are you doing?
Oh, nothing. I'm fidgeting with the hard drive.
Fidget with it not on your desk. That microphone's good, man. So,
I mean, of course the government's going to try to do this, because we talked about this with Connor a few weeks ago. Of course the government's going to try to come in and muscle their way into the cryptocurrency market. I mean, in some countries they're talking about going cashless. It threatens their control. Things like cash and cryptocurrency threaten the control of government.
Trying to outlaw it because it's how people are dodging their corrupt disaster of the government.
Yeah, people have resorted to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies overall in Venezuela because they can't rely on the government-issued money because it's garbage. I mean, these are the people that raise the minimum wage 100% every couple of months because they think that raising the minimum wage magically makes them richer.
So, as our boy Owen Benjamin says, socialism always leads to starvation and genocide. We are seeing people with 12-year medical degrees in Venezuela resorting to being streetwalkers. Yeah. Because they have to feed their families.
Oh, but not real socialism, Zach.
Yeah.
Don't you know that places like Denmark are real socialism?
They will contest that very loudly.
Yeah, even though places like Denmark and Sweden actually have, some are actually mostly capitalist countries. They just have very generous welfare states, which they are even now starting to walk back because they're realizing that they're too generous. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Scandinavia and Venezuela.
Well, here's the thing. Well, I think it's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Cryptocurrency is our answer to socialism. It's how we fight back. Let's be honest. This is one of our best weapons. We have taken control of money partially away from the socialists, and they're not happy about it. On the topic, like you were talking about, the Scandinavian countries, that what the problem with their socialism right now, or their big government thing, they brought in a ton of not refugees. Those are economic migrants. Let's be honest. They're North Africans. They're not coming out of Syria. And again, we're for the free movement of people, but if you have a huge welfare state and you are letting someone who is coming into your country without job skills or literacy in most cases, and just assuming that your population is going to pay for that, you're going to crash. Those countries, their economy is going in the toilet, except for Norway, I believe, because Norway said no. And I don't think...
And Norway's not in the European Union.
Right. I don't think that telling people that they cannot immigrate into your country is the correct answer. But you cannot have open borders in a welfare state. Or what is happening in Sweden will be your reality. I think the answer is not having the welfare state, because that is the moral answer. But you can't completely fault the alt-right for saying, well, we need closed borders, because that is an answer to that question. It is not the right one, but it's an answer, and the left does not have an answer to the question right now. And they can't.
No, the left denies the existence of a problem.
Right.
That's what the left does.
So
the left sees it as a good thing.
Right. And again, this is not an endorsement of the alt-right. So here's what I would say about them. Much like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, they are very good at diagnosing problems in our society. Their solutions suck.
I wouldn't make that as a blanket statement, because some of the problems, quote unquote, that Bernie Sanders
when you're talking about okay, so they diagnose all the problems, and they also diagnose problems that don't exist. That's fair. Like the alt-right would basically start talking about Jews and get bent. Seriously, just get bent.
Well, I mean, I can think of several, like Donald Trump going after free trade. That's not a problem. Not a problem that exists. Bernie Sanders going after wealth inequality. And he's not going after the kind of wealth inequality created by central banking. He's going after the wealth inequality created, through capitalism. Not a real problem.
He's not going after the wealth inequality that gave him 3 houses.
No, he's not at all. So anyway, you were talking about how, like different group, you're right. Some of these radical ideologies point out problems that actually exist.
Yep.
Like Bernie Sanders will point out the rising cost of tuition. That's a problem that exists, but he misdiagnoses it.
Yeah. He diagnoses a problem, and then says, "Well, in order to fix this problem, we need more of the problem." It's like, can we double down on cancer? Maybe adding more cancer will cancel out the first cancer. No, you idiot. That's not how it works. I think we're about done. You got anything that
this cryptocurrency kind of went off on the rails, didn't it?
The thing is, cryptocurrency does go off on the rails because so many things connect to crypto. I think that the cornerstone of our movement right now is crypto, because if we take money away from the status, we can win. Yeah, when we have to play by their rules because they have the money, we lose. When we take that away, we win. This is the most important issue for us. I will preach that.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, I think it's an issue that we're going to see a continual slide towards statism, because they have the numbers, they have control of the government, they don't want to give up that power. And
here's an example of what we can do, though. In Nebraska, some loon put forward a bill talking about regulating crypto, and it's a very badly written bill. Hopefully, Ben and Mike talk about it. Ben has a really good take on it, so I'm not going to try to steal his thunder. And we've talked to Senator Ebke in the past about this, and she has always said that she doesn't feel like it's an issue that would come her way, but she's obviously for the libertarian position on cryptocurrency, and I'm not trying to speak for her. In order to make sure that these bills do not pass, we need more Senator Ebkes. We need a Senator Ebke, at least. She needs to be reelected. I know a lot of people did not think that this was going to be an issue that we had to deal with on a state level. I always kind of felt like it was, and we're seeing it now. And from what I've been told by some people, this isn't a serious bill. It's not going to go anywhere. It's so badly worded that it would be unenforceable. But next session, it might not be. And we need to have people in place to fight this. We need to be ready for these battles. We need Senator Ebke and more like her.
I think regardless of if it goes anywhere, the very fact that it's being brought up onto the floor for debate is troubling in and of itself. The very fact that someone thought it important enough to put their name on a bill to regulate cryptocurrency in Nebraska, that's a bad sign. And you're right. This year it may not go anywhere, but there's somebody behind this. Some senator didn't just get it in their crotch or start regulating cryptocurrency for whatever reason. And some lobbyist somewhere is pushing this. Somebody wants this to be a reality. And yeah, they'll fail this year. They'll come back with, but if they think that there's an opening, they'll come back with a better bill next year. Maybe a little bit better worded, maybe a less, I don't know, maybe less ambitious.
Yeah.
But they're gonna come after it. People are gonna come after cryptocurrency because, like I said, it threatens their power base.
Mm-hmm.
So, events. Do we have events coming up?
As of recording, we have an event tomorrow, but I'm not going to get this turned around in time.
Nah, I don't think so.
Go support Tyler Glow. Go follow Senator Ebke, Tyler Glow for West Side School Board. We'll have our other campaign launching soon. I need to talk to the Tri-City guys to see if they actually came up with a candidate yet.
They had 5 new people at their meeting today.
Dude, they're kicking butt.
Good on you guys.
Yeah, you guys are doing great. Yeah. See what I've got. My vice chair series is going really well. I've got one interview that I'm editing. 2 are out. 1 that I'm editing. Another one that I have to shoot. That's the 4 major candidates. There's a couple more people that might announce, but I don't know.
Jared Hall.
So this isn't. Nah. So I really wanted Jared when I saw who was running before.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Alex Merced jumped in, how do I say
I like him. I like Alex Merced.
Alex is good. He's a good guy. I mean, I got into doing social media stuff like this because of him. So nice. I think Jared is really good at what he does, and it would have been kind of a shame to split his attention.
Yeah.
If there's someone else that I like to do that job, I would rather Jared keep doing what he's doing because he's getting people elected.
Yeah, he's Jared Hall is a freaking rock star. And it's amazing to me because he's so new to the movement.
Well, he's kind of an indie star because he is a hipster.
He is a hipster. He is one of the biggest hipsters I've ever known. So he's an indie rock star. Whatever he is, he's a great libertarian. He's an amazing activist. So yeah, I'd rather him doing what he's doing now than running for vice chair because that's such a thankless job. Who wants that job? I mean, I want someone to have that job just so we can get some changed leadership. I want somebody to want. I don't know.
Yeah. What else we got? I did get a call back from a certain chair of the party who agreed to do an interview. We just need to sit down and figure out when.
A certain chair, as though there's more than one.
Look, man. All I know of that's running is Sarwark and Smith. So
you already had Smith on.
Mm-hmm. Look, so I try really hard to keep my personal feelings out of my interviews, and then to not really push anyone afterwards. There will come a time when, after I'm done with this series, and I feel like I've hit every major candidate and given people time to make their own decisions, I will start advocating for who I believe in.
Dude, as the convention nears, I've got no problem with pushing certain candidates in this podcast. This is an opinion show. These are me and your opinions, all right? So we want to start pushing certain candidates. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Nobody has to listen to us. But you should.
And so I do. So here's the thing. My opinion, I am tied to a lot of different things. So you might not ever really get my opinion on this. You are in a much better position to throw your opinion out there. I feel that I have to. Well, I have to be a little more neutral because I'm the one interviewing these people,
That's true.
Also because I'm bringing most of. Well, I'm not. I'm on the Roads to Freedom Foundation, who's bringing all of these people into Omaha for the unconvention. I don't want to say, hey, this one guest that we have is better than this other guest that we have. Even though I've talked to David Demarest and Joe Hawk, and they're like, hey, what you do on your time is you. We're okay with that. But I still feel like what I say personally, because people know what I'm tied to, matters. So it might be a while before I come out and support someone. I will say, if I'm not friends with some of these guys, I'm very friendly with a couple of them, and it's going to be very hard for me to not. When I'm going to probably be a delegate to the national convention, it's going to be very hard for me not to pull for them. Like at the convention, trying to swing deals to get them elected because they're friends.
That's part of what a delegate does. But anyway, I think that's enough for today. We've rambled on for quite enough. So
this was a good talk, though. I felt like we don't do as much like big picture stuff. I felt like this was a good episode.
Yeah,
our last episode was not our best.
I thought it was funny as hell.
It was funny, but it wasn't our best.
All right. Well, I mean,
feel like tonight we both brought a much better game.
It is funny though, because the less planned an episode is, the better sometimes it turns out.
Yeah, because like we dovetailed into some really cool ideas tonight. I really think that was good. But there you go, Nebraska. I'll try to get this one out faster. I'll try not to just screw. I have Monday off because is it Martin Luther King Jr. Day?
You get Monday off, you freaking. I hate you.
Work at a bank. It's paid.
I hate you. I had to work today, and I got to work again on Monday. So,
Sorry,
1 day weekend for the second week in a row.
Sorry,
Jamie. Anyway, that's it for us. Thank you for listening. It's been nice talking to you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Have a good week.